Hello and welcome to the 49ers First and 10 podcast. 10 minutes of the most up-to-date 49ers news first thing in the morning. I'm your host, Brianna McDonald, and today I'm joined by 49ers team reporter, Lindsay Polares. Today we're covering the latest practice updates and previewing the 49ers' upcoming matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. But before we dive into the regular season finale, let's talk a bit about the Pro Bowl. The 2024 Pro Bowl game rosters were announced on Wednesday, and the faithful have huge reasons to celebrate. The 49ers are the most represented team in the Pro Bowl this year, with a league-leading 9 players making the list. And not only is the team elite, but the fan base is also, since the 49ers received the most amount of fan votes out of any club. So, Lindsay, what's it like to see the immense amount of support from the faithful?
I think the support from the faithful should come as no surprise. We see how excited and enthusiastic this fan base shows up to Levi Stadium and to stadiums across the country. So I would expect nothing less, honestly, than the output that the faithful had in the Pro Bowl fan vote. And like you mentioned, just a tremendous effort by everyone, really. The 49ers were able to come away with 3 of the top 5 vote getting spots. Quarterback Brock Purdy brought in over 451,000 votes. Christian McCaffrey came in at number 2, and then the People's tight end George Kittle at number 4. Just a tremendous output by this fan base. They are supportive and loyal every opportunity they get. This is just the next one. And yeah, I mean, to have a league leading 9 players voted to the Pro Bowl speaks not only to the product that is being put on the field, but also the support for just the entire fan base that is behind them. And I know that a lot of the players, upon receiving news that they made the Pro Bowl, some of the first people they thank are the faithful, because it's a team effort. You can't get to the Pro Bowl without support of the fans. And I know that they are so, so grateful for that support.
Absolutely. So huge shout out to the faithful. But now looking ahead to Sunday, you mentioned that head coach Kyle Shanahan and the entire coaching staff was going to take a careful yet calculated approach to this week's game. And it looks like they've made some changes at quarterback for this one. So could you share more details on their approach and what's happening this Sunday?
Yeah, we've heard head coach Kyle Shanahan talk multiple times this week in his press conference on Wednesday. And then I also listened to an interview from KNBR as well. And being in this very unique Week 18 situation is obviously a good thing, to not have your back against the wall. It's a pretty low stakes game for the 49ers in Week 18, but also it presents this interesting chess match of which players are you going to rest? How do you keep your team in an offensive rhythm? How do you keep everyone safe, but also rest the people that need it, but also work with the roster numbers that you have? And there are already injured players. It's a chess match. And, head coach Kyle Shanahan is really in the midst of that, because the 49ers injury list has been pretty substantial in the weeks past. He did mention that there are at least 6 injured players that should not be playing this week and are not going to be playing. So that really left him with one available opportunity to rest one player. That one player that's already been ruled out ahead of week 18 will not be playing against the Rams, is quarterback Brock Purdy. So yes, it is going to be Sam Darnold taking on the quarterbacking duties in the final week of the regular season. He was someone that came to the 49ers in free agency and has made little appearances throughout the year, but Brock Purdy has started every game up to this point. So it's just a little bit different to not have your QB1 out there as your team is, closing out the regular season. But obviously you're keeping in mind that that divisional round is coming up faster than we think. It's going to be bye week, wild card weekend, and then at some point the weekend of January 20th, and you want to put your team in the best position to win, and having a healthy, fresh quarterback is a really good way to start.
Yeah, and it's a similar story for LA. The Rams head coach Sean McVay confirmed on Wednesday that the team will start Carson Wentz at quarterback and rest Matthew Stafford. So how are you reacting to this news from the 49ers perspective?
Yeah, I think it's also not a huge surprise on the Rams side as well, where they are locked in positioning wise for the playoffs. They cannot improve to the 5 seed, so they're either going to close out this year as the number 6 seed or the number 7 seed, depending on how other games play out within the NFC. So they're also trying to take the best approach to position themselves in the best way possible for the wild card round, because they are not going to have that luxury of the bye week. And in addition to playing Carson Wentz, resting Matthew Stafford, they're also not going to be playing a lot of their key players like Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Tyler Higbee, Kyron Williams, Joe Noteboom, just to name a few. So they're taking, I think, a very conservative approach to week 18. And we heard Kyle Shanahan also mention that he doesn't think that the game plans are going to be incredibly intricate from either side, because when you also look at how the different playoff scenarios could happen down the road, the Rams could very well be a team that the 49ers play in the divisional round. So it's a very interesting approach these next few weeks. You don't want to give everything away. You don't want to go 100%, but you also want to finish strong and keep the momentum going. So both sides are very much navigating this interesting situation.
Yeah, taking a look at the Niners and their entire roster heading into this one, what have injuries looked like for the Niners in this week of practices? And are there any other players aside from Brock Purdy that are possibly sitting out of this game?
Yeah, we know for sure that running back Christian McCaffrey, who is the team's rushing yards leader, the NFL rushing yards leader, he is dealing with a mild calf strain that we learned about in our Monday morning press conference call with Shanahan. He is not going to be playing, and then also cornerback Ambry Thomas actually played with a broken hand in the last matchup in Week 17 against the Commanders. So he actually underwent surgery on Tuesday. He's not expected to miss significant time, but don't expect to see him out there on Sunday either. Eric Armstead is another guy who has not played since wrapping up that Week 13 game against the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's been dealing with separate knee and foot issues, and they'd like to have him back in time for the playoffs. So best approach there is also to rest him up until that divisional round. I think it's going to be a wait and see for the other players that are injured at this point. We saw that John Feliciano, who has been the 49ers swing offensive lineman, he had a back injury, but actually returned to practice as well. So we'll see what happens with him, and just a various number of other players that are kind of just dealing with the wear and tear of the season.
Yeah, and on the other hand, a few players actually saw some action in practices for the first time this week. Wide receivers Ray McCloud and Danny Gray, who are both on injured reserve, both went through full practices on Thursday. So what's the latest on those two?
Yeah, Ray McCloud is someone who had his practice window opened earlier this week, and that's actually a huge plus, a positive benefit for the 49ers, because he has been the primary return specialist since he got here to the Bay. And that return specialist duties have been kind of split up amongst kind of a platoon of players between Deebo Samuel and then also Ronnie Bell. Kyle Juszczyk has been also ready to go, and then we saw Brandon Ayuk also kind of taking some punt returns at practice last week. So if you are able to get a guy like Ray McCloud, who can do all of the return specialist duties and has been a really reliable guy in that position, that would be a huge win for the 49ers. He was on injured reserve, or is still on injured reserve, but had that 21-day practice window. So we'll see later in the week if this is the week he gets activated.
Nice. So these might not be intricate game plans, but this is still an exciting NFC West rivalry game. These two teams always bring it against each other. So what should the faithful expect from the Rams this Sunday?
I think the 49ers and Rams game will still be competitive. I think, like you mentioned, there's just so much familiarity being NFC West rivals. And then I think just the fact that, you know, the head coaches, Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, have this long history together. And they're just some of the greatest offensive minds in the NFL right now. I wonder how vanilla the game plan really gets, because you just have such, offensive leaders in the NFL going against each other. But yeah, I think expect it to be competitive. You know, it's hard to forget that the 49ers have that really impressive regular season win streak against the Rams that could very well be extended. I'm sure that is not the priority at this point in the season, and with so much season ahead for the 49ers. But I mean, you have to think that it still exists. So maybe that win streak continues on. But yeah, I think it should be still an exciting regular season finale.
Yeah, definitely. But before we wrap up today's podcast, it's time for some bold predictions. So, Lindsay, do you have a bold prediction for this contest?
I expect to see a really good game from Sam Darnold, so I'm gonna go a 3 touchdown performance from Sam Darnold.
I like it. Well, we'll just have to see. So, faithful, tune into the Week 18 matchup. It'll kick off at 1:25 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, January 7th on Fox. But that will do it for today. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining me in this episode. Don't forget to follow First and 10 on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to turn on the notifications so you're in the know when we post any breaking news updates. And thank you, Faithful, for tuning in.